Hello, this is Mr. View, and this is a World War I MME prep for the Social Studies Department. Teachers, go ahead and hand out that worksheet that I gave you, and the students can fill it out as we go. There were several reasons that World War I began, including an arms race. Nations throughout the world were building up their militaries. They were taxing their citizens, and because of this, they had to use those arms. They can't just tax their citizens for boats and tanks and guns without actually using them, or the citizens will get upset, saying, "Why are you wasting our money?" There's a huge arms race, and because of that, the nations felt like they had to use those. Another reason was nationalism. Nationalism means extreme pride in your country. I believe my country is better than yours, and I have a right to go over there and take what you have. A third reason for World War I is imperialism. Imperialism means expanding your borders or taking over other countries. People were all about trying to gain more material possessions and more land. And because of that, people bumped into each other. Countries ran into each other and had to fight. A fourth reason for World War I was the assassination of Archduke Ferdinand. Archduke Ferdinand was from Austria-Hungary, went to visit Serbia. When he did, he was killed by the Black Hand, a militant group, and a 19-year-old named Gavrilo Princip. His country, understandably, was upset about it, so Austria-Hungary offered an ultimatum to Serbia, which Serbia denied. When Serbia denied that, Austria-Hungary declared war. Alliances is the last reason for World War I. Austria-Hungary called on their good friend Germany to back them in their fight with Serbia. Serbia called on Russia, and Russia took them up on it. So instead of just a one-on-one war, all of a sudden you had 4 countries in. Russia had an alliance with France, and then when Germany went to attack France, that drew in Belgium, and Belgium had an alliance with England. So England jumped in. So now instead of a one-on-one battle, you have 6 countries, and other countries just kept getting involved. 2 main groups were the Central Powers and the Allies. The Central Powers were made up of Germany and Austria-Hungary mainly, but they had a couple other smaller groups, Bulgaria and the Ottoman Empire eventually. The Allies were made up of a lot of countries. England, Vive la France, Italy, eventually the United States, Russia, and Serbia. So we actually joined the assassin side during this war. But I think Mr. Taluki will get to that. There was a lot of new technology during World War I, including machine guns, airplanes, submarines or U-boats, which were used a lot by Germany, including to sink our ships that were supplying the Allies, poison gas and gas masks, and tanks. This was a devastating advance in warfare. Trench warfare was nasty. It was trenches, a few hundred yards apart, and both groups were firing at each other using a crossfire situation. The trenches would fill up with water, and soldiers would get trench foot. There were rats and lice in those things, and you lived there. You went to the bathroom in there. It was pretty nasty. A lot of people died during trench warfare. The middle land in between the trenches was called no man's land. No man wanted to be caught in no man's land because you're liable to die. It was pretty pointless. It caused a stalemate in the war, which means nobody was winning, because you'd only gain a couple hundred yards if you took over the other trench. So it wasn't really worth it to lose, thousands of men this way. especially with the advent of machine guns, where you could just mow people down who were running at you. Eventually, we know that the war ends, and the treaty that ended it was the Treaty of Versailles. The Treaty of Versailles said a lot of things, but one of the main things it said was that Germany had to take blame for the war, even though they weren't the assassin and they weren't the one who called on somebody else to join them. They were blamed for the war. They also had to pay reparations. Reparations are payments for war damages. So even though they lost the war, they had to pay countries like England and France and Russia because those countries were damaged. It's like getting beat up and having to pay the person who beat you up. The Treaty of Versailles also limited Germany's military and took Germany's colonies. The League of Nations was formed from the Treaty of Versailles, which was a group of countries that decided to try to end their disputes peacefully through talking it out. The big problem with the League of Nations was the United States wouldn't join it. The United States said, we don't want to be involved in foreign wars or anybody else's conflicts, so we didn't join the League of Nations, which took a lot of bite out of it. Some of the results of World War I. Number one, the Allies won. The Central Powers lost. 8.5 million people were killed, and 17 million people were wounded. Industry and farmland was destroyed, including a lot of the animals that were on the farms. Entire cities were wiped out. You had to rebuild your cities to reclaim those jobs that were lost. And then a devastating flu epidemic came throughout the world and wiped out 20 million people. So more people died of the flu than of bullets. People were very unhappy with the Treaty of Versailles. Some countries didn't get colonies. They lost lands. And people revolted as a result. They thought that they were going to get more from the Treaty of Versailles than they actually did. And they were upset about it. They revolted against their government. The main result of World War I was World War II. Germany was very upset with the Treaty of Versailles. And because of that, they slipped into a huge depression, even worse than the United States, and they ended up following that crazy guy named Hitler. And that's the end of the MME prep today. Hope you filled out that worksheet. Do those map questions, and good luck.